Welcome to Movie Caps. Today I will show you a crime, drama, thriller film from 2014, titled The Gambler. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Jim Bennett is sitting at his grandfather's deathbed.
Okay, and then when I click chat, guys, I'll do a little bit of the gamble before I go to bed.
His last
Just
breath.
a little bit.
He is one of the richest people
I don't have
in
to, I
California.
kind of just want to.
He leaves his grandson no inheritance. Jim says he will miss him, but he calls his crap. Jim does not care about his grandfather's wealth. He's just sad that he's dying and relives the last memories of him in his head. Jim visits an underground casino with tight security. He exchanges his stack of dollars for chips, goes to a blackjack table, and bets all the chips on the first hand. On the next hand, he doubles his bet. Again he looks at the camera and doubles his bet as if to taunt the security guards. After losing one of his hands, he still looks like he wants to double his bet. Even with no chips, Jim calls the dealer an amateur and demands a double. He loses $80,000 on a single hand, owing to casino $40,000. Neville comes up to him and asks him what's going on, maybe if he wants to gamble for one round. Neville bets $10,000 against Jim's $500 on a high card. Jim loses and seems unfazed by what just happened. Neville points out that he's a guy who likes to lose. So he proposes a loan to him, which he declines. He goes to the owner of the casino, Mr. Lee, and asks for another loan. Mr. Lee explains to him that he came to the casino with $10,000, but instead of paying his loan, he gambled it away. The total amount he owes is $240,000 and he wants it paid back in 7 days. Jim comes back to Neville and asks him about the stake he offered, $50,000. He says his interest is high. Jim does not care. He pays off his debt to the casino of $40,000 that he lost earlier and takes one blue chip, $10,000, from the chip register and goes straight to the blackjack table. Dealer glances at pit boss if she may deal. As before, he doubles his bets and goes on a roll. After going from $10,000 to $80,000, he gets a winning blackjack hand that pays him 3-2, and he decides to bet all on roulette.
It's supposed to be 2.5.
It rolls red and he loses. One of the waitresses is Jim's student, Amy, who Jim recognizes. After the loss, the crowd disperses and Mr. Lee is displeased. In the morning, he leaves the casino owing to 2 large gangs. 7 days left. He's heading straight for the campus. Jim is a literacy professor standing freely in front of his class, and there he sees Amy. He seems natural and confident. Jim discredits novel writing as a profession, saying it's mediocre. There are plenty of happy electricians. If you are not a genius, do not bother. He points to one of the boys in the class. His name is Dexter. He is a good tennis player. He asks him what he is after, the game or the money, fame or virtue? Both, he replies. That's greed. Continuing this train of thought, he quotes an author, Vespasian, "Dear God, I think I am becoming a god," before saying Amy beats him to it on her laptop. Jim notes that Amy is the most well-read person in this class, noting that he barely writes adequately compared to her. He asks her why she hides her writing talent and tries to fit in. She says it's safest to be in the middle. He starts to question her family situation, and when he does not see any advantages, like her father or mother being writers or rich, he asks why she is better than the rest of them. He ends the lecture by telling her to sit where she belongs, in front of the class, or she should not bother showing up at all. Jim is visiting his mother, Roberta. She is playing tennis against Dexter, a boy in Jim's class. He's her coach. She talks a good game and says if he gives her one more point she'll fire him. Jim is only there to demand money from her. Roberta knows Jim is in trouble. She'd buy it if he was looking for meaning in life, but that's different. She points out he's not narcissistic or stupid. He's her son, so what's the point of his behavior? She has said goodbye to people she loved before. Jim, yeah, whatever happened with Dad? He implies that she can be a cruel woman. She tells him she will not give him any more money. Jim kisses her on the cheek and leaves. She looks crushed. When he gets a call from Neville about his debt, he throws his phone into a pond. 6 days left. A man picks up Jim and drives him to Frank's. He is a loan shark who lends large sums of money. After calculating how much Jim earns, he puts him in his place and says that his yearly salary does not even cover it. He lists everything about Jim: birth, education, intelligence, talent, looks, family, money. Is it all a real burden to him? Frank assumes Jim is dancing with the devil because there is no reason he should owe Neville and the Koreans money. Basically, he's self-destructive. With the loan Frank offers Jim, he would get $260,000 and would have to pay 10% interest weekly. Where would he get the money? Jim just says that he will get the money. Frank tells him that he will lend it to him if he humiliates himself. To put it in a nutshell, if he says he is not a man. Jim leaves. He's in a lecture hall when Amy walks in and sits down. asking him if he meant what he said in the lecture about her having talent. He answers over the loudspeaker, absolutely. Amy basically tells him that he's a genius, but for some reason, Jim just cannot accept that. He comes closer and tells her she has to leave, he cannot have her here, it's inappropriate. Amy leaves without her bag and comes back with Jim's book and asks him to sign it. She wants to know the truth about him, but he will not open up. Amy asks him out, he declines and she leaves. 5 days left. Neville calls Jim, who has heard that he has approached Frank for a loan, and inquires about his debt to him. He says he did not like the terms, so he didn't get the money. In class, one of his students who is always on the phone, Lamar, says that he doesn't understand killing oneself and asks him how he can be depressed driving a BMW A1. Jim asks him, does it look like I am happy? He's not happy because he's teaching the modern novel to a classroom full of students who do not care. He might as well be stark naked on the desk and no one would care. He's in this class pretending to teach and the students are pretending to learn. He dismisses the class because he feels defeated and asks Lamar to stay behind. He asks him what he needs to do to stop using his phone. The school told Jim to give him a good grade even if he fails because he is a star basketball player. Lamar explains that Jim is not the only one who has problems in his life.
What does it mean to be a
He
god?
understands the message he is sending, all or nothing. To be or not to be. It's the same for him, he needs to go pro because he has a knee problem and his family needs money, all or nothing. It's as if Jim recognizes himself in Lamar. Jim's car is towed as collateral for Neville's loan. Jim's mother arrives and hands him a new phone. He is pissed that she is in his house. She asks him if he still needs help with the money, he says that's already been taken care of. When she says a thug has been in her house, he writes down the amount he owes them. Jim says if he does not pay, they'll break every bone in his body and go after his family, to which Roberta slaps him and tells him he's a disgrace. They visit the bank. Roberta asks a bank clerk for $260,000 in cash and to not ask any questions. She tells Jim that this is the last money she will ever give him and that she will disown him if he ever asks for more. Jim does not care about his mother, he tells her that they are only talking because of her finances.
You guys,
she walks away defeated.
The thing is, at this point, he can either pay the loan back or he could put it all in and double.
4 days left. Amy drives up to Jim,
I know what I would
who
do.
is sitting on a bench, and tells him that if she has to engage in an inappropriate relationship to get him out of his job, she's ready to go. Sometime later they are at a deserted location. Jim asks Amy, what if I told you I am not a gambler? She says that she has seen him as a professor, and he is not one of those. She believes him. Jim is a perfect example of how someone who starts out with no problems whatsoever, go out of their way to have them all. He asks Amy to help him start over. They visit a local casino. At the blackjack table he trades $10,000 for chips, bets $500 and after getting a total score of 18, he asks for a double. He gets a 3, but it still feels like he is playing for a loss. On the next hand, he goes all in and loses. He keeps rebuying and losing. After a while, Amy finds Jim and asks, everything? He grins. He explains his true feelings to Amy. He wants it all, total victory, there is no gray area, you either take it all or lose it all. And he would rather die than not achieve it. Just as he finishes, Amy kisses him. Later, Neville ambushes Jim in an alley. He's looking for his money.
Guys,
after Jim.
Guys, this is what I did in Rust. Okay, this is the mindset that I have. You know what happened in Rust? I ended it with 48,000 fucking scrap. You know why? Because I'm a fucking gambling slot whisperer, machine whisperer, juicer, international gambler. Now what?
At home, he receives a message from Neville saying that the number he gave him is not Lamar's. Jim grabs a gun and takes a swig of whiskey. 2 days left. Jim wakes up with Mr. Lee's gang in his house. They are worried that Jim will try to do something to himself before he pays back his debt. Jim sits down in front of Mr. Lee and says that there is only one way to pay back the debt. He has to lend him another $100,000. They take this as an insult and throw Jim in a full bathtub and drive away. As Jim leaves the bathroom, he sees that they misspelled Monday and scoffs. At the pawn shop, Jim wants to sell his watch and asks for $3,500. He will not haggle, just answer yes or no. When the owner counters with $1,200, he leaves immediately. Neville's men kidnap Jim right outside the shop.
What?
He is tied to a chair. Neville asks him how he's going to pay him back and Jim jokingly says he's going to write another book. Neville asks if he would give him the money if he lit a cigar and stubbed it out on his eyeball. Do I look like a magician? Neville's muscle man comes up and slaps Jim. Neville wants Lamar to throw tomorrow's basketball game so they do not win by more than 8 points because he'll bet on it. If Jim does not do what he says, he will kill Amy. At campus, Jim packs his stuff and tells Amy to hold out her hand and say goodbye. If he gets to her, then he's done. If he does not, then he's dead. And what do you do with the dead? You bury them. Amy turns and leaves.
Huh?
Jim walks out of the school and gives away his watch to a random student. He sees Lamar and offers him money if he throws the game tomorrow. Jim asks him because he knows Lamar needs the money and it's his decision. Jim comes to Frank, he's out of options. Frank asks him if he has the sense to leave if he has to. Frank likes Jim, so he changes the terms. He'll only give him the money if he's able to say get screwed to anyone, even Frank himself. If he gives him the money and he does not pay it back, then there are no more rules.
What?
Then he cannot say screw you to anyone. He'll wipe out Jim's entire bloodline. Do you understand the gravity of your situation? Jim says screw you and Frank hands him the keys to a car with $260,000 in it. Jim is standing in front of a nail salon.
Double
Mr.
down
leaves
again.
him with the money bag. He goes inside and instead of handing him the money, he tells him he wants Mr. Lee to loan him and he will get him his money. He gets beaten up by Mr. Lee's man and still speaks disrespectfully to Mr. Lee and demands $150,000. Mr. Lee laughs and gives him the money. Last day. Jim
Boom!
gives Lamar $150,000 to
410.
play the Wildcats basketball game. Neville is watching, Jim is in the stadium. In the first half, Lamar plays like he always does, making Neville uncomfortable. When Lamar starts missing easy throws, he gets booed by the crowd and is substituted. Lamar feels humiliated. The Wildcats had a 14-point lead and now they are losing. Lamar is back in the game, he remembers Jim saying it was still his call and he decides to win the game. If the Wildcats win the game by less than 8 points, it's still considered a toss-up. In the final seconds, Lamar has the ball and he throws, misses and wins the game for the Wildcats and Neville's bet. Sometime later Jim sits in Neville's office and asks if they are even. He hands him his money with interest and when Neville inquires where he got the money, he says he got it from Frank. Neville knows what kind of man Frank is and is disgusted with Jim. Jim had sent Dexter to Las Vegas to bet all the money he got from Frank on a Wildcats win by 7 points or less. Jim calls Frank and tells him he got his money and they need to meet in Koreatown. Reluctantly Frank agrees.
Wait, what?
Jim grabs all the money he can and heads to underground Korean establishments. The casino section. There he meets Mr. Lee, whom he tells he got his money and points out that Frank is there too, and he owes them both money. He does not have enough to pay them both, so he'll bet it all on roulette, either he'll pay them both back or none. Mr. Lee and Frank cannot do anything to Jim because Koreatown is run by another gang of mobsters. He takes out all the cash, the room goes silent, places it on the roulette table and says all on black. The leader of the Koreatown gang nods like he's taking the bet. The ball lands on black. With a sigh of relief, Jim turns and tells him that the money is for the two gentlemen and that he is not actually a gambler. Jim leaves Koreatown. Frank pulls up near him and says here is $100,000, there was a little extra from his bet, and it's on him. Jim says screw you. Jim is not a real gambler, he is someone who uses gambling merely as a means of self-destruction. His primary goal is to lose everything. Nobody who wants to win, doubles up on every single hand. Jim was seeking the loss. He runs all the way.
Stop tagging me in the chat, it's fucking weird.
And knocks on her door. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.